A few months ago, a thought occurred to me regarding the Far Territory expansion and the new items and mechanics it introduced. A few of the additions the expansion had to offer were a better alternative to existing items and mechanics, such as the fire-hardened arrow replacing the rock-throwing mechanic to hunt small game, or the insulated flask enabling you to extend your warm-up bonus without starting a new fire for each drink. Then there are completely new items that are unique to the expansion, such as the handheld radio and respirator mask, and mechanics that have reshaped the quiet apocalypse on Great Bear Island, such as the trader and transmitter tower and radio signals. Then it happened, the event that would inspire me to make this video, the announcement of Blackfrost, The Long Dark 2. Let me present you with this question. Was the Far Territory expansion for The Long Dark an experiment for Blackfrost? In this video, I will justify why I'm asking this question and provide possible evidence for my theory. Since this video will be very heavy in the speculation department, do not take anything I say as fact. Why do I believe in the possibility that the Far Territory expansion was an experiment for Blackfrost? Well, the time frame for the development of both very likely line up. Going as far back as September 2023, there was this section in the dev diary titled New Projects. In it, they wrote, "Part of the team has also been hard at work on new things," which tells us they have been working on a new game for a little while by that point. They also wrote, "Why? Because it takes years to create and develop new ideas and new games, and we need to have something new ready by the time The Long Dark is finished next year." I mean, Jeebus Darkwalker Christ, if people actually read these things, they would know why Blackfrost was announced so early. Anyways, this was the first time I can remember Hinterland announcing they had other game projects in the works. The idea for paid survival mode updates was mentioned as far back as the December 2021 dev diary for the Perilous Constraint update. It is likely in this 2022 to 2023 period that Blackfrost entered its earliest stages of production. What we got for the announcement at the end of 2024 is pretty impressive for roughly 2 years of development. Hinterland wrote, "Blackfrost builds on a decade of construction, experimentation, and community-informed development" in the announcement site. Obviously, Blackfrost builds on everything that they have done in The Long Dark, so is it not possible that Hinterland carefully chose what the expansion contained to sort of test the waters? As they stated in the September 2023 dev diary, it takes years to create and develop new ideas and new games. Making any game requires a refined vision or an idea of what it will look like, feel like, play like, etc. These decisions are usually made very early in development. Changing the vision for a game too far into production can be dangerous, so I think Hinterland knew exactly what they wanted to do with Blackfrost before it entered full production. I believe this is where the expansion comes in, and I will share what exactly I mean by that. When Blackfrost was announced, I immediately noticed some parallels with the Far Territory expansion and the trailer, website, and Steam page for the sequel. I'll start by going down the list of features added with each part of the expansion. In Part 1, there are 2 things that appear to have translated into Blackfrost. Glimmer Fog was the first of many new environmental hazard types added in with the expansion. It is followed by the Toxic Zones of Part 4 and the Cougar of Part 6. Blackfrost seems to be putting an emphasis on environmental hazards both old and new. Not only are dangerous wildlife and the auroras returning as well as their associated risks, but radioactive Blackfrost will also be present. Some of the other hazards include the risks of an urban environment, extreme weather events, what looks like contaminated water, and even human NPCs. Then I get to this screenshot, which makes more sense with the electrical sparks effect from the Visual Enhancements update. What we are seeing here is a possible electrical fire hazard. There are a slew of new hazards with the expansion that have made Great Bear Island more dangerous, and it looks like Blackfrost is aiming to make survival in Harmont even more dangerous. Additionally, Insomnia of Part 1 and the Haunted Mind of Part 5 are new mental afflictions that now accompany cabin fever. In fact, misery mode in general kind of presents itself as a worst case scenario of what happens to the body and the mind in such a hopeless survival situation. Blackfrost will be featuring the new Will to Live system, which adds psychological survival elements as another thing to manage. After all, mental health is just as important as physical health, and I'm sure any survival situation will be both mentally and physically taxing. In Part 2, the handheld radio was a pillar of various new gameplay mechanics that required electricity, such as searching for transponder caches and tracking the signals picked up while playing the tales. If you look at the trailer for Blackfrost, the brown bramble scene shows a Geiger counter in a person's hand. I take this as there may be one or more electronic tools that survive the first flare and have an important use for survival. The potential for a handheld radio to be included is high, especially as a tool for communication with other human NPCs as well as co-op friends. There isn't anything specific in Part 3 that I can see from the Blackfrost announcement, but it would be a shame if the advanced cooking system didn't make it in. Although we can see what looks like action-specific animations, such as chopping a tree, picking up items, opening a heavy door, and even melee combat. In various updates from the expansion, we see the inclusion of new animations for a few types of player actions. If Hinterland set up an advanced animation system for Blackfrost, there are a lot of new possibilities, like fishing with an actual fishing rod. I personally hate working with Unreal's anim system, so I'd rather eat a can of dog food. Part 4 had the handheld Travois for a human to carry, and Blackfrost shows us a few instances of this in different forms. For one, the ducking horse has its own horse-sized Travois that is not only carrying a bag, but also a person that appears to be injured. Wait, are there going to be rescue missions in Blackfrost? Or escort missions? Oh god. Anyways, the horse also presents an opportunity to carry an additional inventory. Also, these screenshots suggest that we will not only be able to carry certain animal carcasses on our backs, but also carry large containers with the help of another person. While some of these mechanics aren't quite the same as the Travois, the idea of carrying additional items across the world outside of your backpack is there. Part 4 also features miner's clothing that act as a hazmat suit. The Blackfrost trailer shows a person wearing a full hazmat suit that looks like it will be required to explore the Brown Bramble nuclear power plant. Speaking of Brown Bramble, the ZOC is basically Brown Bramble. Coupled with the unique environmental hazard, specialized equipment to explore it, and maybe unique predator variants, although that hasn't been revealed yet, the ZOC is like a prototype for a highly dangerous environment with a unique theme, like Brown Bramble. This is actually the first parallel that I noticed between the expansion and Blackfrost. Part 5 featured the new cheat death system, which gave you the option to respawn after dying while accepting a penalty of some kind. Blackfrost will feature pretty much the same thing in the form of perma-life. This evolution of the permadeath concept turns each death into an opportunity that further advances the story of your character as well as presents a challenge to overcome. While most survival games allow for respawning, the penalty is usually XP or items lost. The Long Dark and Blackfrost have the added challenge of taking a physical penalty that both tests the player's resolve, as well as allows them to either accept the consequences of their actions or compromise the survival experience and learn from their mistakes. I see this as the clearest parallel between the games as it is very on the nose. Part 6 features huge similarities, including its name. Broken Silence, the name of the update, was chosen for the fact that the deafening silence of the loneliness on Great Bear Island was broken by the traitor Sutherland. Guess what happened a few days after Broken Silence released? Blackfrost was announced and prominently featured a quiet apocalypse that was not so lonely. The concept of an NPC traitor in the Long Dark presents two changes for Blackfrost. First is the inclusion of other NPC humans as well as co-op friends to join you in your survival adventure. The second is the potential for trading with any and all human NPCs as well as your co-op friends. The other feature from Part 6 that I kind of see returning is safehouse customization. Where I see it in Blackfrost is in this scene from the trailer and this screenshot on the Steam page. Not only are these from the same room with an entirely cleaned up and rearranged interior, this is the same room from the teaser that Raphael shared at the start of 2024. This is pretty strong evidence that something akin to safehouse customization will be featured in Blackfrost. Honestly, I would prefer this over base building from scratch, which is featured in a ton of survival games. I find base building from scratch kind of jarring and nonsensical. Like, is every person in this survival world a professional construction worker and engineer? Updating an existing interior and doing whatever you want to do with it is much better in my opinion. At this point, I've answered why it's possible that the expansion was a sort of test for the development of Blackfrost and what parts of the expansion make me ask this question. It is entirely possible that I'm pulling at threads that mean nothing and lead to nowhere. I could very well be reading too much into things that are unrelated, but you have to admit that there are a lot of similarities between the expansion and the Blackfrost reveal. Of course, this was just the announcement, and future trailers, social media posts, and dev diaries could drop more details that also show similarities to the expansion. Considering the work that goes into creating the vision for a game and laying the groundwork for its production, it takes careful planning and decision-making far ahead of time. It is possible that either the expansion only exists because they wanted it to be a prototype for Blackfrost, they wanted to see if a selection of new mechanics can evolve the Long Dark in a positive way, or the choices made for the expansion were unrelated to Blackfrost. If the expansion was part of an experiment for the future development of another game, I think it succeeded with flying colors. The only thing that didn't really live up to the expectations was the concept of an apex predator, the cougar. I didn't bring this up before, but I don't believe there will be a traditional story mode in Blackfrost. I believe, like the narrative tales from the expansion, the game's story will be built into the survival world and be presented through NPC dialogue and quests, random notes, radio signals, world-building scenes, buffer memory like lore entries, and maybe more. This would be a great way to combine the two game modes. You can play through the game's story at your own pace while balancing it with the standard survival. Of course, this whole video is speculation, but I can't help but question what we've seen so far when the reveal for Blackfrost was so beautifully crafted and somewhat similar to the expansion for the Long Dark in some of the strangest ways. Let me know what you think about the main question that this video presents. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like for the algorithm so I can keep making them.